For years, the Viper Room served as the favourite playground for Hollywood superstars, but there's more than just a scandalous history lurking within the Viper Room's walls. From ghostly encounters with a potential murder victim to unexplained voices long past closing time, come and sit by me as we dive into the infamous club's dark past and even darker entities. Hello, my friend. How is your day going today? Are you doing good? Are you staying hydrated? You drinking your water? If you're new around here, hello, welcome, hi. I am Claire, and I am a lover of all things morbid, mysterious, and macabre. I have spent hours and hours absolutely enthralled in ghost hunting TV shows and paranormal investigations. But you know what I love more than the night vision footage and the EVPs? I love the history behind a paranormal encounter, the origins of urban legends, and the real, raw, personal ghost stories that people have experienced firsthand. So that is what we are going to do. Every week we sit down and swap ghost stories like a good old sleepover. So if that is your scene, I would highly recommend you subscribe so that you'd never miss a chat. Now, we've already covered a couple of haunted spots in the UK so far, but ever since I first learned about this place and just the heartbreaking history, I just had to talk about it. This episode is heavy on the history rather than the paranormal because there is just so much to talk about. But if you're anything like me, that's the bit that you also find interesting. Tell me a place is haunted, that's cool. I'll listen to haunted house stories all day long. But you tell me a dark history and then you tell me it's haunted? That just makes so much more sense then. It's yeah, that's why it's haunted. It's so much more compelling. So get ready because we are going in on the history lesson to find out exactly what happened in this place. And obviously, I'm going to tell you all the ghost stories to go along with it too. I'm not going to hold out on you. I will say that some of the facts around these stories, especially with what happened with River Phoenix, is very convoluted, with different people having very strong opinions on what actually happened that night. So just bear that in mind. So let me set the scene for you. We're on Sunset Boulevard. It's the early 90s. There was one spot where the brightest stars of their era could go to escape the spotlight of their own fame. That was the Viper Room. And this place was the antithesis of the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. It was this grungy little haven where the young superstars could just retreat to and let their hair down in privacy. We're talking young up and coming stars like Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie, those sorts of people. They were all starting to make their first appearances in the late 80s, early 90s kind of time. And they were all the way in the spotlight, which I can imagine is hard for anyone, but for young people getting into Hollywood, all these cameras in their face all the time, scrutinizing them. And I mean, it's hard for anyone. It's hard for any young person. I made mistakes when I was younger, but then to have them televised and sold to tabloid papers and told all around the world, that's going to be a lot. No wonder you're going to want a place to just go away from all of that. And so they did just that to the Viper Room, because behind the pretty much unremarkable black doors of the place, you could find A-list celebrities from models to movie stars, gambling, taking reasonably hard drugs, and just generally indulging in debauched behaviour. But alongside drug scandals, an underground poker ring, and even a mysterious disappearance, there was one night in 1993, literal months after opening as the Viper Room, that would forever haunt the nightclub and pretty much stain its reputation forever. And with a history as long and tragic as this one, it's unsurprising that the Viper Room is rumoured to be haunted. So let's start at the beginning. While the Viper Room will probably always live on in Hollywood infamy, the building itself had pretty humble beginnings. It was one of the oldest commercial buildings in the area and was built at 8852 Sunset in 1921, where it was used as a grocery store called Young's Market. It's quite funny because the Sunset Strip was completely unrecognizable from what it is now. It had none of that glitz and glamour at all, because Young's Market was actually the local grocery store for the residents of Sherman, which was a blue collar railroad community that had settled a little further down the hill, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. By the late 1920s, the whole area had started to evolve as the neighborhood started attracting like directors, producers, and movie stars. And these celebrities were all looking for a place to like blow off some steam, and there was no better location than the route connecting Hollywood to Beverly Hills. And there's an interesting reason for this. It's probably unofficially got something to do with the fact that it lay just outside of LA police jurisdiction. So at that point, anything goes. So luxury cafes and like boutiques started popping up to cater to all of these celebrities, but so too were the illegal gambling halls and speakeasies, even during the Prohibition. So at this point, Sunset Strip was starting to like shift away from that humble, like hardworking community feel, because it provided that perfect storm of being convenient enough to get to, but yet far enough away for celebrities to indulge, let's say. And so as the strip transformed into like this celebrity playground, the era of Young's Market was pretty much over. It was replaced in June 1946 by the Cotton Club, which was infamous for attracting and hosting some of America's most notorious gangsters and criminals. But the Cotton Club wouldn't last long, as just 1 year after opening, it permanently closed to make way for the Greenwich Village Inn. But the problem is, we were like a couple of years into the post-World War II Los Angeles. The Sunset Strip was under a lot more scrutiny by the public, and more importantly, the California legislators' subcommittee on public morals was keeping a closer eye on the area. Because the thing is, like, after the war, the underground scene in Hollywood was like booming. So the subcommittee sent undercover investigators to check out these like popular watering holes on the strip and found that it was just as bad, if not worse, than what they suspected. There was strip teasing, nude dancing, and even like cross-dressing performers in the 1940s, so like it was a big deal. After the inspection, the subcommittee decided that the Greenwich Village Inn, along with 7 other establishments on the strip, should have their liquor licenses revoked due to, quote, indecent, lewd, and lascivious entertainment. They argued that the managers were allowing their establishments to be used as a gathering place for immoral and perverted individuals. Like, they had this idea that these places were the Wild West, and it was time to bring some law and order. There's a new sheriff in town, boys, and it's called the California Legislators Subcommittee of Public Morals. So they recommended syncing the Sunset Strip laws with those that passed in the city of LA in the 1930s, which prohibited nightclubs from allowing nude dancing and cross-dressing. The thing was, the strip was controlled by mobsters, including Mickey Cohen, who was the gangster in charge of pretty much all the vice on the strip. He was actually nicknamed the King of the Sunset Strip. And they were making money, like hand over fist, from illegal prostitution, drugs, and gambling, which was all still illegal. Like, they weren't about to give up on all these profits. They made sure to keep the local law enforcement on their side by paying them to look the other way so that they could continue with their less than savory enterprise. Mickey Cohen's payroll also extended to those a little higher up the chain, and the day after the subcommittee issued its report, a reporter asked a senior official at the state liquor licensing agency when they were planning to revoke the licenses of these premises. Like, you've condemned these places, like, when are you going to take their licenses off them then? To which he responded that he had never been instructed to investigate these establishments, and so there was no plans to revoke any licenses whatsoever. Funny that. But even with the mafia involvement, the Greenwich Village Inn closed by the end of the decade, being replaced by the Rue Angel. But yet again, this business venture would not last long. Is it a curse? Is it poor business choices? I just don't know. On the 9th of January 1950, a fire at the rear of the building caused the equivalent of $110,000 worth of smoke, fire, and water damage, and the business never reopened after it. By September in that same year, the building was again opened as a strip club called The Last Call. And I mean, like, the building's track record, is it really a good idea to call it The Last Call? Like, I feel like you're kind of tempting fate a little bit there. The Last Call boasted itself as a rendezvous of the stars, The club offered stripscapades, which were 5-hour-long marathons held every single day, 7 days a week, where the girls would like dance through the audience on a runway. In 1951, local officials finally bowed to public pressure though. New laws brought about a ban on strip clubs, so the last call called its last call for the last time on the 5th of April 1951, less than a year after it had opened. And the day after the last call closed, Mickey Cohen and his wife were accused of tax evasion, owing about $2.7 million in today's money. And just like that, the mafia stronghold on the strip was over. But the building at 8852 Sunset did not remain vacant for very long, because in that same year, 1951, two brothers, Pete and Billy Snyder, opened the Melody Room. And that was open for 18 years. Like, that did a little better. So over the next 18 years, the Melody Room would begin to establish the club as like the rock and roll mecca in LA. Like, if you wanted rock and roll scene, that is where you went. In 1973, the club became Filthy McNasty's, attracting legends of the time like Elvis Presley, Mick Jagger, and even Evel Knievel. The 80s saw another reinvention of the venue, becoming a jazz club called The Central, owned by Anthony Fox. Now, I just want you, just remember that name, Anthony Fox. Just lock it up in your little brain box and remember it. Because at this point, the club was struggling and it was close to shutting down. And that's when Chucky Weiss, who had played at the Central on Mondays for 11 years at this time, mentioned to his friend Johnny Depp, yes, that Johnny Depp, saying that he should go in with them and like revitalize the club and rename it the Viper Room. And Depp was actually up for this. Like, he saw the vision, like he was happy with it, and so he actually decided to go for it. So along with his friends, he entered into this business partnership with Anthony Fox, where they set about bringing this vision of the Viper Room to life. What a history lesson, right? I was second guessing myself when I was like researching all of this old history, because, well, I find it super interesting to give a whole picture of an entire history of a building. I do get that it is a lot, but I want to know what you think. Like, do you prefer it when I go into more detail, or do you just want me to cut the chase and get to the ghost? Like, let me know in the comments. So something that not a lot of people know about Johnny Depp is that when he first came to LA, he was looking for a record deal, not a movie role. The only reason that he got into acting was to pay the bills. And even while he was acting, he was always trying to get some sort of music projects off the ground. And he did see like some success, like his band opened up for people like Iggy Pop, but they never really made it like he did with his acting. And so part owning a music venue, like especially one that was so important to Hollywood, like that seemed like the perfect move for him. Like, I completely get it. And he told the LA Times on opening night, 14th of August 1993, that he loved the idea of clubs from the 20s, 30s and 40s where celebrities like wouldn't feel like they were on display. So it's no surprise that it quickly became like the favorite spot for the biggest names in Hollywood at the time, because like paparazzi weren't allowed to come anywhere near it. Like the celebrities like had their privacy basically. And so everyone from like Johnny Cash and Keith Richards right through to like Avril Lavigne and even Keanu Reeves' band Dogstar have performed there over the years. Like it was so popular. But there was one night that would forever live on in Hollywood infamy. Because on October 31st, 1993, mere months after opening, one of the brightest Hollywood stars would tragically lose his life. And River Phoenix was well on his way to making a name for himself. Like, he'd already starred in films like Stand By Me, My Own Private Idaho, and even Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I absolutely loved Stand By Me when I was younger. I feel like it was a really influential moment in my childhood when my dad first introduced me to that film. Like, it was an absolutely brilliant film. I absolutely love it. And anytime that I hear that song by Ben E. King, I just go straight back to that first night when we first watched it. So when I first made the connection that River Phoenix was in the film and how he had died so young, it really kind of stuck out to me. I mean, he was 23 years old. And he'd actually just agreed to play Daniel Malloy, the journalist in Interview with a Vampire. But obviously he would never get the chance, as he wouldn't even live to see the film start shooting. And movie trivia fact, that's the reason that the film is dedicated to River Phoenix at the end of the credits. Like, even though like he never appeared in it or like worked on it at all. He had such an amazing career, like opening up in front of him. Like, people absolutely loved him, but he had his own demons that he was battling with. He grew up in a religious sex cult, the Children of God. And at one point, he was the only source of income for his parents and 4 siblings. Like, he was supporting all of them. He had so much that he was dealing with. So it is sad, but not surprising that River was known to have a cocaine and heroin problem. And he was regularly spotted at like LA parties that were just fueled by drugs. So on Halloween 1993, River, his brother Joaquin, his sister Rain, and girlfriend Samantha Mathis had gone out to this party in Hollywood, and they were invited to hang out later at the Viper Room. And so River was like well up for this. He was hoping that he'd get the chance to jump on stage and like play with his friends, because that was sort of the vibe. Like, you could just go and chill, or you could like go and jam on stage with all of these massive celebrities that were also your friends, who were all just there having a good time. But when he got there, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers told him that there was no room on stage. And it is a really small place. Like, the stage is tiny. There just wasn't the space for all of them. And clearly River was disappointed, but he just went back to his table just to make the best of it and just try and enjoy the rest of the evening. But that wouldn't last long. As the night went on, he mentioned to a friend that he was worried that he'd overdosed, having taken a combination of heroin and cocaine that's known as a speedball. I think that's really shitty of the friend as well. Like, if someone's telling you that they think they've overdosed, don't then respond to them like, well, you can't have overdosed because you're talking to me. It's like, get him some help. He quite clearly needs help. But what do I know? Later on, Samantha Mathis would comment that River was, quote, high in a way that made her feel uncomfortable, even though apparently she didn't see anyone take any drugs that night. After she came out of the bathroom, she saw River was getting escorted out of the club. So obviously she followed them, and that's when she saw River just drop to the floor, like right outside the doors, and start convulsing right in front of her. So she went back inside and grabbed his brother and sister out of the club, where Joaquin made that absolutely heart-wrenching 911 call that was leaked to the press, which I'm not going to play because it absolutely should not have been leaked to the press. As if this poor family didn't go through enough. Like, you can really hear like the panic and the fear in Joaquin's voice. Like, to have that on the internet forever, like, I don't think it's right. So if you want to hear it, I'm sure it's out there on YouTube. You just need to search it. But like, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to play it. And when the emergency services arrived, they transported him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m. The autopsy report concluded that his cause of death was acute multiple drug intoxication with lethal doses of cocaine and heroin in his system, as well as traces of Valium, marijuana, and ephedrine. There were a few different versions of the story circulating, including a theory that River was given a spiked drink, and that's what led to his overdose. But conveniently enough, there is no CCTV footage because apparently it was destroyed. So we'll probably never know what actually went down that led to his absolutely horrific death. So yeah, that was a very tragic night in the club's history. Out of respect for the family, Depp temporarily closed the Viper Room after River's death, and then on every Halloween after that. And many people said that the club was just never the same after that night. But it didn't stop the Viper Room. It continued to be this safe space for celebrities, including the underground poker ring that involved Spider-Man actor Tobey Maguire, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Ben Affleck. But trouble was never too far away. Depp found himself in the middle of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit filed by Anthony Fox, who still owned 49% of the Viper Room. Fox had said that Depp had basically conspired to effectively fudge the numbers and skim millions off the top of the club. But on December 19th, 2001, as Fox was preparing to testify against Depp, he went missing. A few weeks later, on the 6th of January, his pickup truck and rifle were found abandoned in Santa Clara, but there was just no sign of Anthony. In his absence, the family continued the lawsuit against Johnny, and in 2004, he eventually settled, and he gave his share of the Viper Room to Anthony's daughter. The club continued, but somewhere along the way, it became home to a few extra regulars that just wouldn't leave at closing time. Now, I will say that most of the evidence comes from interviews with the Ghost Adventures crew. So regardless of how you feel about them, just bear that in mind. Because from what I can see, there hasn't been any actual investigations done on the place other than like BuzzFeed Unsolved. But managers of the club have mentioned that they'd received a mysterious phone call where they'd pick up and it would say, a man's voice would say, "Hi, it's me," before the phone line goes to static, and they speculate that that is Anthony Fox checking in on his club. One staff member also claims that a female spirit used to send text messages to her when the entity got mad that the woman couldn't see her. When she would try and call the number though, it would just be static. I mean, I do get where the ghost is coming from, like, I probably wouldn't answer a phone call and I will send you a text instead. Tommy Black, who is a musician and was the longtime bar manager, has reported that the upstairs bar area has like a playful energy to it, although he did mention that he's witnessed like so many different people completely buckling and just hitting the deck in this one specific part of the bar. And I can't remember if it was BuzzFeed or Ghost Adventures, they like showed like loads of different like CCTV footage, and it is in exactly the same part of the bar. People's knees just give out and they just drop to the floor. It's really weird. The bar downstairs, however, has a much more sinister feel to it. Tommy said that he would feel like a constant pressure in his chest, and he's even seen glasses just like shoot and fly straight off the bar. And next to the downstairs bar, there is like a dirt floor crawl space, which he says that he would never go into. But I mean, like, haunted or not, I don't think I would ever get into a crawl space ever. Like, it's just dirt and two walls. Like, no thank you. There have also been various voices caught on the spirit box throughout the bar. I cannot stress this enough though. I could not find any paranormal investigations done by paranormal groups or individuals other than Ghost Adventures and BuzzFeed Unsolved. And it would have been really great if other groups had had the opportunity to go and investigate this place, like just to see what they pick up. Like if they could validate these claims and help to connect some of the history with like some of these creepy stories that the staff members are claiming, like that would have been so much more compelling. But unfortunately, it seems like that is not to be, as a developer has bought the block that the infamous Viper Room stands on. And it looks like it's going to be demolished and turned into a high-rise, complete with a hotel, condos, restaurant, and retail units as well. And there will be a live music venue included in the design that will allegedly bear the name of the Viper Room. But I mean, like, that's not really the same, is it? But like, it's clearly a shame. I mean, like, hauntings and the dark history bits aside, like, it's one of the oldest buildings on the Sunset Strip. Like, the amount of history that's just going to be lost, I think that's such a shame. But anyway, what do you think? Did you ever go to the Viper Room? Have you had any experiences? Or do you have stories about the Viper Room's past, like maybe a different version of events? I mean, there are so many different videos and stories circulating around YouTube about what really could have potentially happened. But please do let me know your thoughts down below, because I absolutely love reading other people's thoughts, comments, and of course, paranormal experiences. I think in any building that has had such a long history, tied to the mob who are known for their violent tendencies, and with like the tragic incident that happened to River, I think it is entirely possible that the place is haunted. Like I imagine that the energy in that place would be very significant. Like it would definitely have a vibe to it with all the things that those walls have seen over 100 years. However, even with that like murky history and some pretty peculiar stories tied to the place, I'm quite reluctant to say for sure whether it is actually haunted. And that is purely because of the lack of corroborating evidence other than from a TV show, basically. But let me know. If you enjoyed this video, I would be so forever grateful if you would hit the like button. And I would love to see you back here for another story sometime. So maybe, I don't know, if you might like to subscribe, that would be awesome. But only if you want to, it's fine. That's all from me anyway today. I cannot wait to chat with you more tomorrow. So until next time, sleep safe.